I never liked Sunday dinners. Not because of the food. My mother could still cook like no one else I knew. But because of the invisible weight that came with sitting at that table. It was the weight of their expectations, their comparisons, their eyes scanning me like I was a crack in the family portrait. I always arrived on time, wore something decent, and smiled just enough to be polite. But nothing I did ever seemed enough. Especially not to my mother. That evening was worse than usual. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the fact that Jake, my younger brother, had just gotten promoted again. Maybe it was just the perfect storm of all their disappointment toward me that had been building for years. The air was thick with judgment, even before the food was served. I sat between Aunt Monica and Uncle Tom, both of whom had more money than empathy and loved to talk about hustle culture like it was their religion. "So," Uncle Tom said, smirking as he carved into the roast, "you still doing that thing you do? Working from home, was it?" The way he said that thing made it sound like I was running a lemonade stand. Before I could respond, Jake laughed and chimed in. "Before we dive into the story, we'll love to thank you for your continued support to this channel. If you enjoy this story and stories like this, kindly subscribe and hit on the notification button so you don't miss any of our stories. We will love to hear from you also. Tell us where you're watching from in the comment section. We'll love to give you a shout out in our next video. Now let's begin. He means your little internet business, bro. Still designing logos for people's pets." Everyone burst into laughter. Everyone but me. I chuckled softly to play along, even though inside I could feel that familiar sting. I kept my eyes on my plate. I wasn't about to explain my business model for the 50th time to people who had already made up their minds about me. My cousin Lily nudged her fiancé and whispered something I couldn't hear, but I caught her rolling her eyes in my direction. Whatever she said made him laugh too. Then my mother cleared her throat. The room grew still, which usually meant she was about to deliver the final blow. "You know what really hurts?" she began, her voice slow and deliberate. "That I raised 2 sons, and only one of them turned out to be something. Jake's a manager. He has a real job. Real respect. You." She paused, shaking her head. "You're the reason I never talk about my second son to my friends. You're the shame of this family." I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just sat there, listening to the clinking of forks and muffled laughter as they went back to eating like she hadn't just stabbed me in the chest with every word. The room felt smaller, darker. My father didn't say a word. He just looked away and sipped his wine like a man who had long accepted defeat. I stood up slowly. Not dramatically, not angrily, just enough to excuse myself with some dignity. I didn't plan to make a scene. I didn't plan to fight back. I had heard it all before, just not that bluntly, not so viciously. But before I could even push the chair in behind me, the phone rang. The sound cut through the room like a blade. Everyone froze. My mother glanced at her phone, frowned, then answered. "Hello? Who?" She looked confused for a moment, then stunned. Yes, he's here." She held out the phone to me like it was burning her hand. "It's for you," she said, her voice suddenly trembling. "They asked for Mr. Sanders." I took the phone gently, unsure who it could be. Hardly anyone ever called my mom's line asking for me, let alone addressing me as Mr. Sanders. I raised it to my ear slowly, aware that everyone was still watching. Forks paused in midair, expressions half frozen in whatever mockery they'd been preparing next. "Mr. Sanders," came the voice on the other end, sharp, respectful, and calm. "Apologies for the intrusion during dinner, but the board insisted we update you immediately. The acquisition went through. You're now the majority stakeholder of Jefferson Global. Congratulations, sir. We'll await your directive on Monday." I stood completely still, letting the words soak in. Not because I didn't understand, but because I wanted them to hear it. I wanted them to witness it. Every syllable echoed through my mind as I stared at their faces. The very people who had spent years dragging my name through the dirt. I ended the call with a simple, "Thank you. I'll be in touch." and slipped the phone back onto the table like it meant nothing. No one moved. Not even Jake, who was usually the loudest voice in the room. My mother's hand gripped her glass so tightly her knuckles went white. My father sat up straighter in his seat. My cousin Lily looked like she was trying to figure out if she'd misheard. I let the silence work for me. Then I spoke. "I've been working on something," I said slowly, eyes moving from face to face. "While you were all busy measuring success by titles and job descriptions, I was building a company. I didn't talk about it because I knew you wouldn't understand. But I didn't need you to." I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out an envelope, one I had kept in there for weeks, unsure of when I'd find the courage to use it. I laid it flat on the table, right in front of my mother. "That's the new ownership deed for this house. You remortgaged it without telling Dad to pay off your boutique's debts. It was about to be repossessed. I bought it before it hit the market." Gasps exploded from three corners of the table. Aunt Monica covered her mouth. Jake swore under his breath. My father looked at my mother like he'd never seen her before. "I didn't want to embarrass you," I continued, my voice steady. "I was going to let you stay here quietly. But since I'm apparently the family's shame, maybe it's time I stopped doing favors." My mother's mouth opened, then closed. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. "Why would you? Why didn't you tell us you were successful?" I offered. "Because none of you ever asked. You all assumed I was nothing. You laughed at what you didn't understand. And honestly, I stopped needing your approval a long time ago." Jake stood up. "Come on, man. Don't be like this. We're family." "We were just joking around." "Joking?" I repeated, turning to him. "When you mock someone every chance you get, that's not joking. That's bullying. But I guess it's easy to laugh when you're always sitting at the top of the ladder, until you realize the guy you kept kicking down was building a taller one." No one laughed now. No one dared. The weight of the moment was finally sinking in. All those years they spent defining me by my job, by my salary, by the absence of a fancy title. They had missed the truth completely. "I never wanted revenge," I added quietly, heading toward the door. "I just wanted peace. But sometimes, the only way to get peace is to stop pretending you're part of a family that never truly accepted you." I turned the knob, paused, and looked back one last time. "I'm not ashamed anymore. But you should be." And then I walked out. I ignored their calls for 21 days straight. I watched my phone light up with familiar names. Jake, Mom, even Dad, though he never bothered to speak for me at that dinner table. I didn't answer. Not once. I had spent enough of my life hoping their next words would be different, that maybe this time I wouldn't be the target. But that hope had cost me too much. I was no longer hungry for their approval. I was finally full of peace, of purpose, and of proof that I never needed them to believe in me for me to win. The world didn't collapse because I distanced myself. In fact, it opened up. Jefferson Global's acquisition elevated my consulting firm overnight. My inbox overflowed with partnership requests. Former classmates reached out, pretending they'd always known I was going places. I ignored most of them too. I was done performing for people who only saw value in me once I had something they could brag about. I didn't need to prove anything anymore. But that didn't mean the past didn't linger. The words my mother had spoken, "You're the shame of this family," they clung to my mind like smoke. So when her email arrived, I stared at it for a long while. The subject line was just one word: Sunday. Inside was only a sentence: "Please come home for dinner this Sunday." No apology, no explanation, just that quiet request. I wasn't sure why I even considered going. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I wanted to see what regret looked like up close. Or maybe, just maybe, I wanted to reclaim that table as a man they could no longer mock. I arrived 5 minutes before dinner. I parked down the street and walked the rest of the way, listening to my own footsteps as they crunched against the gravel. I saw the lights glowing from the windows. I heard faint laughter, though it didn't sound as loud as it used to. Something in the air was different. Nervous, maybe. Hesitant. I stood at the front porch longer than I should have, my hand hovering near the doorbell. When I finally rang it, the laughter stopped. Jake answered the door. His usual smugness was gone. He looked surprised to see me, like he hadn't expected I'd actually show. "Hey man," he said. "Thanks for coming." I stepped inside without saying much. The house smelled like roast chicken and garlic bread. Familiar, comforting. But the comfort didn't stretch far. The room tensed up the moment I entered. My mother came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel, her face pale. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again, like she couldn't find the right words. My father was seated, back straighter than usual. Lily and her fiancé were already at the table, but even they avoided eye contact. I pulled out my own chair and sat down. I wasn't here to make a scene. I just wanted to listen. "I want to start," my mother said quietly, sitting across from me. Her hands were trembling. "I was wrong. That night. I was wrong. What I said was cruel. I can't undo it, but I need you to know I regret it every day." I didn't say anything. I waited. Jake spoke next. "We all messed up. I shouldn't have made fun of your work. I didn't understand it, and I took the easy route, mocking it. I guess I was insecure, maybe jealous. You made something on your own. I've always had everything handed to me." I let his words hang in the air. I wanted to believe they meant it, but I learned not to mistake guilt for growth. Still, something about the way their voices cracked, the way no one dared make a joke or shift the blame. It told me they had finally seen something beyond the surface. They hadn't just seen my success. They'd seen the cost of losing me. "I'm not angry," I said finally, my voice calm. "But I'm not the same man you used to ridicule. I'm not here to make you feel bad. I'm here to say this. I won't tolerate being diminished anymore. If I'm part of this family, it has to be built on respect. No more sideways comments. No more backhanded praise. Either see me fully, or don't ask me to come around at all." Everyone went silent. My mother was crying now, silently. My father cleared his throat, but didn't speak. For once, he didn't try to take control. Maybe he realized he never really had it in the first place. "I know it'll take time," my mother whispered. "But I want to learn. I want to know the man you became." I nodded. That was all I needed. We ate in near silence after that. Not uncomfortable, just reflective. The food was the same, but the energy was different. They were listening now, watching, not judging, but finally noticing. The same way I used to watch them, hungry for validation. They were now quietly hoping to be forgiven. Toward the end of dinner, Jake broke the silence with a crooked smile. "Hey, that call. That night. Who was it from again?" I sipped my water and smiled. "Let's just say, the company you laughed at is now the one your boss reports to." Lily's fiancé choked on his drink. Jake's eyes widened. My father sat back, visibly stunned. I stood up then, pushing my chair in gently. "I don't need a seat at this table anymore," I said. "But if I ever choose to sit here again, let it be because I'm truly welcome, not tolerated." As I walked toward the door, my mother whispered, "I'm proud of you." I paused and looked back. "I know. I just wish you had said it when I needed it most." Then I left. Not out of anger, not out of pain, but out of peace. I walked into the night knowing that for once, they saw me clearly, not as the shame of the family, but as the man who never needed applause to win. If you enjoyed this story, kindly subscribe for more powerful, true-to-life stories that remind us all, respect isn't given, it's earned. Drop a comment if you've ever been the underdog who finally got the last word. Your story matters. And here, we tell it. See you soon in our next video.